All right, so there's been some crazy things going on in the Levant here recently, right? And the Levant is basically almost what you see in front of you, short of like Europe, right? Turkey, Syria, Iraq, Israel, Egypt, Libya, Tunisia, Algeria, Morocco, right? This is, kind of what they call the Levant, Iran, um, and Jordan, right? And basically, the Levant is kind of just like the part of the world, and Greece, by the way, tends to be added into there. This is part of the world that, like, when you talk about the Bronze Age collapse, it's where it happened, right? And this here is the Middle East plus, like, like north part of North Africa, right? Just to give you an understanding of like how big Israel actually is, right? Like, this here is actually Israel. And this here is the West Bank, right? It's a tiny little strip of land. To give you kind of an idea of a size comparison, this is the size of Israel versus New Hampshire in blue, right? This is Gaza versus New York City, and this is Philadelphia versus Gaza. Philadelphia is still actually bigger than Gaza, right? So this is the size of an area that we're talking about, right? Let's talk about this from where it starts, right? Israel got formed in 1947 with its official charter, right? It got started a little bit before that. But, okay, the areas in green are what used to be Palestine. I'm reading this from left to right. Palestine started off in 1946, owning most of the country, right? That was mostly all Palestine. Right now, a lot of this was empty land, due to like, this is pre-baby boom. So, at this point in the world, there was about 3 billion people, right? Compared to the 8 billion today. 47, 1967, right? Notice, a lot of white there with Israel. 2000, other than the Gaza Strip and, basically over there by like the Golan Heights, all the rest of that is all Israel, right? And this is what has been going on forever, right? Israel has been like incursioning into the Gaza Strip little by little by little, or like actually they've been like bombing them and bombing apartment buildings and bombing hospitals and bombing schools and bombing like terrorists and bombing news organizations and peacekeepers and politicians and all of the above, right? And this is Egypt, right? Gaza shares a border with Egypt. You can see that little picture up there in the corner, right? And basically, there are tunnels that go into Egypt, right? Hamas does, and they can, like run weapons and some small amounts of supplies. And this is the only way that people are able to escape, right? Now, why is this, like a bit of an issue for like world geopolitics? It's because of this Suez Canal right here, right? And this can go very, very sideways very, very quickly, right? In the end of the day. Because of the fact that Egypt is about to have like a massive fucking problem, right? And by the way, like, Suez Canal is 20% or 12% of all global trade, 30% of all container traffic, and it adds about $1 trillion worth of fucking cargo that goes through it every fucking year. Highly important. Egypt's about to be in a war with Ethiopia over the Blue Nile because if they like put up the dam that they're talking about putting up, it may end up restricting Egypt's water by about 30%. They want to build a hydroelectric plant in Ethiopia on the Blue Nile, which provides, again, 30% of water for Egypt, and it's going to end up starving out about like 40% of the population. This is a bit of a problem for Egypt, right? This could get very ugly very quickly with this, Israeli thing that's going on at the moment, right? Because Gaza is an open air fucking prison. Let's address this where we need to address this at, okay? I'm an Italian school guy and I'm a Machiavellian, right? I'm a student of Machiavelli. And basically what Israel is doing is Israel's pushing out the Palestinians, right? They're doing what a job does to somebody who they don't want to have working for them anymore, but they don't want to fire, right? Because they don't want to pay the unemployment. So they're just going to stand here and make life as fucking miserable as possible for the Palestinians left in Gaza until either A, they do something completely ridiculous, which they just did. They threw in 2,000 missiles, had an incursion, killed a bunch of people, took hostages. They say they killed a bunch of babies, but let's be honest here. They said the same thing about the Ukrainian war, which was nonsense. Said the same thing about throwing babies out of incubators with Iraq and Kuwait back in the day. Nonsense. This is how you get men to fight and women to get upset and vote for the war, right? Is, you stand here and go, they're killing babies. And the dudes go, we got to defend the babies, right? And the women go, oh my God, think about the children, right? And so, it turns into this nonsense, right? Where it's like, oh, we got to help them, Look, I'd show you photos, but my YouTube channel would get banned. You know what I mean? Because there was photos going around about, the last couple of times that Israel did this shit. The Gazans don't have, trees, so they can't build caskets. So they were stacking the children's bodies who were killed up inside of, deep freezers. Get nothing misunderstood. This conflict is messy on both sides, all right? It's a giant fucking mess, all right? Because, Gaza doesn't have a proper military. It can't have a proper military. They don't have any equipment. They have any place to train. They have no way to drill. They can't fucking leave, right? They can't go anywhere, right? This whole place it's an open air fucking prison, right? In the end of the day. And it's basically a giant concentration camp. And as I said, it's the size of Philadelphia. They have nowhere to grow food. They're food insecure, water insecure, medicine insecure, education insecure, supplies insecure. Just in general, the whole place is fucked, right? And this is going to be solved one way or another. I think the way it's probably going to end up being solved is, Israel is going to either wipe it off the fucking map or just drive them all into fucking Egypt. It's one of the two. Has to happen, right? Because Israel needs to have its borders that it wants to have. And there's nobody who's going to fucking stop them, right? At the end of the day, literally, the UN said this is fucking war crimes, and then they blew the goddamn UN up in the fucking Gaza Strip. They don't care. They're not held responsible for anything they do. So it's just going to be what the fuck it is. Y'all need to accept this fact and understand that needs to happen. Sometimes you need to have that type of wildfire to burn off the brush, right? And the United States has a very dumb way of doing things. It's the same thing the school shooter thing, where we have school shooters because of our zero tolerance to violence policies. When you stop kids from being able to fight, right? You bring a man with a gun in the badge and says, well, I'm gonna fucking take you and kidnap you and throw you in a cage if you get in a pushing fight with another kid. They're going to go to guns. It's either it's going to completely de-escalate or completely escalate. And, the school shootings are the escalation. Same thing with this, right? It's either going to go one of two ways. And long term, pushing them out may be worse for Israel than just executing and killing 2 million people and committing a fucking genocide. They may deal with that for a little while, but, they still are pretty well leaning on, the whole Holocaust thing. So I don't know. And on top of that, they bought every politician in the United States. And the United States has, enough guns to kill everybody else in the world without even involving its actual military. So it is what it is. That's kind of where we are right now. That's kind of what's going on. Expect things to get wild, because I'm going to tell you what, if this flame, right, sparks the war between, them and Israel, right? In the end of the day, that Suez Canal shuts down, things are going to get very, very different very, very quickly. Now, this is a longer shipping route, right, from the Middle East for oil going around the Horn of Africa. But once they start doing it, you start making regular trips and everything just adjusts, all of a sudden Egypt runs out of money very quickly, because they rely heavily on that for their GDP and stuff, right? And all of a sudden that part of the world stops being so important, and Ethiopia and Egypt's war becomes much more likely, right? So I'm saying, expect bananas stuff to happen. You know what I mean? That's kind of where we are, right? This is the United States kind of backing off a little bit and going like, hey, look, the reason why we stood here and like did all the things that we did wasn't for like because like of moral reasons. It was because it was good for us. Today, none of this really matters. We don't really care, right? None of this is good for us anymore. We don't. Why would we care about Europe? Like we in general really actually don't, right? What do we care about? We care about like making sure that Russia, depletes all of its munitions and all of its military and finds itself in a complete demographic collapse. Because that's good for America, because that keeps, like Germany off balance, because they don't have the ability to have Russian, minerals and Russian, like materials for their, industrial might. So that means Germany's never going to be a problem again, because Germany in the next 40 years, according to guys like Zeon, are probably not going to be a demographic anymore. They're never going to be a country or a functioning state. 30 or 40 years. Long term, this is what it is, right? And then Israel takes over the rest of this. All of a sudden, their country, falls into a proper border. Egypt falls into shit, so they can't threaten them, And then they got Jordan on the other side. And Jordan, I'll be honest with you, Brad, like Jordan is probably one of the most chill countries in the Middle East. It's not a democracy; it's 100% a kingdom, right? Like it's a monarchy. It's a heavy duty monarchy. And the king of Jordan will just be like, man, listen, I don't want no war with Egypt. Or I don't want no war with Israel. So Iran and Saudi Arabia have, been getting closer and closer with their ties. And Saudi Arabia really don't care about the Palestinians. They understand what they have to do. Like the new king of, Saudi Arabia is not a dumb guy. Like he completely gets all this. And he's like well trained in the West educational wise. Like he knows what's going on. He's not a dummy. So it's where we are. And look, Tom Peace of Pnoid News. Hope y'all enjoyed this video. Mahalo at y'all. Peace.